Present. Okay, well, everyone, welcome to Traffic Calming meeting number 1 for Brewer Drive. Thank you for those who bearing with us while we got our start here. My name is David Greaves. I work with Kimley Horn, who's working with NDOT on their traffic calming program.
And I'm Liz Tucknell. I'm also with Kimley Horn, working with David on the traffic calming program. And I'll just be here to monitor our chat room, make sure that everyone online their questions answered. So when they type a message in the chat room, I'll just bring it up to David so we can all.
All right. And speaking of questions, I'm going to run through some slides. We'll take some breaks for questions, but feel free to also raise your hand. And, you know, we've got a pretty small group here, so it doesn't need to be super formal. Let's get going. So to answer question number 1, what is traffic calming? The Neighborhood Street Traffic Calming Program focuses on residential streets, so we don't mess with arterials like Nolensville Pike. It's primarily streets where there are neighbors with houses and experiencing high speeds. So the program itself focuses on physical solutions, so we don't really lower speed limits. We typically don't only do like striping. The preferred method for NDOT is to provide physical barriers for speeding to sort of be a natural enforcement to the speed limit rather than you know, signs and rules and things. So that brings us into the 3 E's of traffic calming. It's kind of just a summary. Those are education. That's kind of what we're here doing now, explaining the program and reviewing, you know, why it's important. Enforcement, that is something a little bit outside of the scope of NDOT's abilities. So that's not usually where traffic calming comes into play. But the big one is engineering. So that is where NDOT has full authority to, you know, define the problem and come up with solutions to make sure that traffic goes slowly through our streets. So why is it important? NDOT has a Vision Zero goal. They have a number of programs, this one included, that seek to reduce traffic fatalities and injuries on our public roadways. So this slide here is an infographic that was published by the National Transportation Safety Board in 2017 that basically just details how the speed the car is going, if it were to hit a pedestrian, drastically impacts that pedestrian's chances of survival. So if you're going 45 miles an hour, there's a pretty low chance that they're going to make it. But if we're able to get the speed of traffic closer to 25, there's actually, you know, a really good chance that they're going to remain alive, which is what we all want. So this is a program that's in extremely high demand. This map is from the NDOT Traffic Calming Tracker. That's new as of this year, and it's really helpful to see where in the city neighborhoods are applying for this program. And that's all these purple segments here. So there are currently 464 roughly applications in the queue, and every 6 months we choose 25 or so to deliver as projects. So congratulations to Brewer Drive. You were selected, and we get to move on through the process. So how is Brewer Drive selected? NDOT has a data-driven selection process, so there's very little judgment or arbitrary decisions that go in. We basically measure vehicle speeds and then look at GIS data and conditions to score the other factors. So it'll be trip destinations such as parks and schools, non-driver accommodations that weighs in, are there sidewalks, aren't there, things like that. And then crash history. So are pedestrians and cyclists getting hit by cars today? If so, that's a pretty huge red flag that there's a problem that we need to address. So Brewer Drive specifically, we have the section from McMurray to Nolensville Pike that we're talking about here today. The speed that was measured when NDOT did our data collection was 39 miles an hour. It's about 9 miles above the speed limit. So it's right in the middle of the selected streets in terms of how much people are speeding. And then the volume is 3,200, roughly 50 cars per day. So I think many of us know it seems to function as a cut through of sorts from Nolensville or to Nolensville, both directions. I was out there just a couple hours ago taking a look, and it does seem like a lot of people use that road. So adding the friction that traffic calming provides potentially will divert some of that traffic, or at the very least, make sure they have good reason to slow down as they're coming through. So this is the location map. The section in green is the section of Brewer Drive that we are addressing. The section immediately to the west was another traffic calming project that was successful. So it's in the queue for construction. I don't believe they have anything out there yet. And then you can see the section to the east of Brewer Drive, east of Nolensville Pike, is an application that has not yet been selected. So in the traffic calming program, what options do we have available to us? The primary one, and the one that NDOT sees to be the most effective, are speed cushions. So these are modular rubber devices bolted to the asphalt, and they essentially provide a 3-inch vertical change over the course of the roadway. So it's not as severe as a speed bump like you'd see in a parking lot, for instance. It's more to make it so it's comfortable to drive 20 miles an hour, but it gets progressively less comfortable as the speeds increase. So we found that they're pretty effective at doing that. Speed tables are the other vertical measure. Really, the only difference between speed cushions and speed tables is that speed tables cross the entire width of the road. So one benefit to that is that nobody can go around it, even if you're on a motorcycle, even if you know, there's a little bit of space to nudge between. But the downside of that is they're less favorable toward the larger emergency vehicles. So you can see here, there are gaps, and if you're driving a large fire truck or an ambulance with a wide wheelbase, you can actually navigate these without as much disruption as you might see if you were in a personal car. So that's kind of the reason that speed cushions are the default choice, and then speed tables will bring in special circumstances. So how do we know they work? NDOT has done a relatively extensive data collection process before and after experiments, basically. And they're finding that on average, the speed for the 6 projects that they did studies on were reduced from 31 to 22 miles an hour. And then the 85th speed, that's basically like everyone who is on the road is going below that amount at the 85 percentile mark. So there are still some people going faster than 37, but the vast majority are going below. And we include that because it's a fairly common measure for other traffic engineering functions. And we're seeing, you know, a pretty significant decrease in the 85th percentile speed, down from 37 to 25, which is, you know, good news. It lets us know that the effort is having an effect. Some other options are radar feedback signs. I think we've probably all seen one of these before, but essentially it's a speed limit sign with a solar powered device that reports the speed that you're going. So a lot of times people aren't trying to speed, maybe they're just on a hill. A lot of roads feel like you could go a little faster than the speed limit might be. So it's just a helpful reminder to you know, pay attention to how fast you're going, and if you were to be speeding unintentionally, maybe it'll grab your attention and get you aware that, you know, maybe you should slow up a bit. And then pavement markings, we'll also consider these for streets that are wider than we feel they need to be. Roadways that feel wider, they're more comfortable to drive faster on. You know, we have a broader field of vision, especially on roadways that are straight. So the narrowing pavement markings are helpful for making a road feel a little more compact, and that tends to slow people down a bit. Not as much as, you know, a physical object that you're running over, but better than nothing. Traffic circles, these are a pretty niche treatment. So it's unlikely that we'll see one on Brewer Drive. The tough thing about them is they're challenging for larger vehicles like your fire trucks or school buses to navigate. So there are certain circumstances where we'll consider one, but this probably won't be one of them. And then finally, bulb outs and chicanes. So this is another one where Brewer probably isn't a good candidate for it, but if there are roads that are much wider than space demands, what we can do is narrow the road with wide edge lines, but then also kind of make it exactly. And that's chicanes specifically. Bulb outs we actually are considering for Brewer. And essentially what they do is similar to the edge line markings, they make intersections feel a little narrower. So on turn radii, the longer it is, the faster you can go. So if you have a really wide turn, you could ignore a stop sign and take a turn really fast and maybe not see somebody who's trying to cross the street. Bulb outs force cars to start their turn near the middle of the roadway, and then the radius is usually decreased a little bit. So they basically just make everything a little bit slower, more controlled, and reduce the likelihood that anyone who's trying to cross the road is going to be not noticed by somebody driving. It is, and this photo is taken in East Nashville, and it's not quite what we do nowadays. We do include the white markings and delineators, just in a slightly different configuration. So that is probably a good time to pause for questions if we have any.
So, side of Brewer that's already
Mhm.
they have speed tables on.
Yes.
Circumstances where
You know, if it was a while ago, it was probably just lacking the feedback from emergency services that they prefer the speed cushions.
I think Newmeyer especially was
the reason I say that is for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
Asking me
Mhm.
it's been demolished, causing a fiery wreck.
Oh my gosh.
So I would suggest that a speed table would be safer
Mhm.
side as well.
Okay.
For those reasons.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Great feedback. I would consider a specific request for speed tables as a circumstance that makes us consider them more. So we'll take that feedback and get with NDOT and make sure they're comfortable with it. But
Yeah.
certainly it's something we can consider.
Since they through there,
Yeah.
they have it on one side.
No. And exactly. Another reason that could justify it is simply consistency.
Mhm.
Well, that's great to know. Thank you.
presentations before,
Mhm.
but drive to McMurray to Noblesville Pike.
Yes.
Are you saying that the cars, because if you don't come off of Evanston Pike onto Brewer, you don't get to McMurray. So are you just looking at traffic that comes off of McMurray? Then you have
So the way we collect,
And
why don't
also,
you go ahead?
The people online are asking if
Oh,
you could too.
yes. My apologies to those online. So the first question that I answered was, can this project include speed tables? If that provides any helpful context. And we can also revisit it at the end if anyone has further questions. The question that was just asked is how we evaluate the traffic volume. Yeah.
Because if it's coming, my thinking is if you turn off of Evanston onto Brewer, the same amount of traffic is gonna be at that stretch that would be going to the, Brewer to McMurray.
Yeah, I think I'm following. Essentially, the way we collect the traffic volume for evaluating the streets is there's essentially a trailer that NDOT will bring around, and it collects how many cars are passing and how fast each of them are going. So we don't exactly know who's coming from where or why or what streets they turn on after. It's just a simple point collection.
And the other thing is, I believe I'm not mistaken on this, my end of Brewer has a very wide shoulder, but then
Yeah.
as you go up, you're
That's
right.
right. We don't, but sections of gravel. Well, actually, we have a wide shoulder on one side and not the other. So. It's still.
It's not a paving show.
No, it's gravel. Which makes it even more dangerous the way that they.
And I'm just, and the reason I asked that, because Brewer is a heavily traveled, street.
Yes.
Through. And so if we have the space to make it both ways, a 4-lane, has that been considered?
So widening roads is not something that this program typically pursues. But I would agree, it is a lot of traffic for the space available. We probably aren't going to consider any significant narrowing, just because the pavement width is about 23 feet today, which is a pretty standard lane size for Nashville. Any questions online? Okay, well, we can go ahead and move on then, if we're all, okay, great. So that is everything that the Nashville Traffic Calming Program does. What we like to do is take the opportunity to share some additional resources for anything that people have concerns with.
I
Yes,
do have one other question.
please.
You mentioned that you get feedback from emergency vehicles in terms of whether you use cable, common. They put the tables in, I was not aware that they had put something else in before that. Didn't you have any input or notification that that was going to happen? Left home one morning, got down one, came back. What is this? So you don't consult or let the residents know these things?
No.
No, this is for this meeting,
Yeah.
but when you put those devices in, I don't remember getting, on my end, I don't remember getting any notification about that.
Yeah, understood. We have a slide in a couple that basically outlines the whole flow of the program.
Okay.
And there are a few, that we'll explain in detail how the
Because at
aid.
that time, our city council person, and I asked her about that, and no, we did not have.
Council person for.
Nothing, Richard, they had the tables there, but before that, they had something else.
Oh, yes, you're correct. You're correct. I came in late.
And that's what I'm talking about there. There was no notifications on my end for either of those. But go ahead, you said something up later.
Oh, sure. For pretty much anything that is in the public right of way, Hub Nashville is a good resource. They can handle anything from stormwater complaints to obstructed sidewalks, obstructed roads, things in poor condition, damaged signs, what have you. And it's an app and it's pretty navigable. They also have a phone number, 311, and you'll get people to help you with your requests.
That's not too friendly because I was making about the pavement that's occurring on my end of Brewer right now. When you go in there, they say something about non-construction noise. Well, my complaint was non-construction, but it didn't pertain to noise. It was something else I worked out. So for me, it was difficult even to go down through there to finally find that type of complaint. So they could make that a little bit more clearer and maybe put the complaint format up a little closer.
Yeah, that's good to know.
So we can definitely take this back to NDOT.
In addition to that, so anything pedestrian and cyclist related, Anna Dearman is a great resource. She's the walking and biking manager for NDOT. Her email is there. By the way, these slides will be posted, and the video of this presentation will be posted to NDOT's YouTube page. So if anyone does miss the information, it'll all be available. And then JD Lane is the contact for the Beautification Commission. They run the Adopt a Street community service, neighborhood cleanups, things like that. So let's move on to Brewer Drive specifically. We have visited Brewer Drive and developed this loose concept plan. So what we have here is 4 sets of speed cushions. We'll be considering tables as well, thanks to your feedback. And then the intersection of Greenleaf Drive and Brewer Drive is pretty wide. They're the wide radii that I talked about for turning. And usually when we see intersections that large, we like to attempt to narrow them up a little bit.
Intersection is going to have a stop at.
Mhm. That's a very good point. So bulb outs do work. I mean, they are possible to install in conjunction with 4-way stops. We have that going in on Oakwood Avenue in East Nashville pretty soon. So they, go ahead.
This may not be the project, but I also know it was, you know, and it's a, this is on Spring Hill, some vertical posts.
Mhm. That's good to know. I see. Got it. Understood. Well, we will take note of that. It would be great if meeting 2, they were able to come and just like
Yeah.
voice that opinion.
Yeah.
But we'll certainly note it either way. It's valuable information for us. And then up here, this is just a picture of what speed cushions look like in real life. We do sometimes install white delineators in conjunction with the speed cushions. Those basically are another method to discourage people from swerving around to dodge them. We may or may not have them here. It kind of depends on the road width and how the devices and spacing shake out. We are accepting any and all feedback at this meeting and in a period of time afterwards. So please share whatever you'd like to, and we're able to take it into consideration.
I speak for a moment. This one between closer to.
Okay.
So 2, I think, serve the purpose that we need.
That is good to know. We'll consult with NDOT to see, how they feel. For a little bit of color, essentially, NDOT has standards on how speed cushions are implemented, and there's essentially a range of distances that they tolerate them being placed. So what they don't like is just like one speed cushion without others in series, because
really short. It's a roadway.
yes.
And this is that you have 4 speed cushions there. It's not very, especially from the other side of Brewer, spread out.
Understood. The range that we tend to operate in is 400 to 700 feet spacing.
We have a comment from online at 450 Brewer Drive. There is WeGo access ride vehicles coming several. Just like us to coordinate with WeGo. input regarding cushions and tables.
Yeah, that's great. We will likely reach out to them about the tables probably if we consider those, or when we consider those, that is. This road is not wide enough to do a 3-cushion arrangement, so that's kind of what you see up here in this picture. So WeGo specifically prefers to have the cushions like in the middle of the lane, and that's how they can roll over it without really like exiting their desired travel way. So more likely than not, will produce a design that they're, have stated they're comfortable with. Any others online? Great. So here is the aforementioned slide about the program workflow. So this all starts with the neighborhoods. Residents apply. There are 2 cycles per year. And then we move into the prioritization and selection process that we described earlier, where collect a lot of data, analyze it, give every street a score, and choose the ones that are most in need of measures. This red bubble here is where we are now, meeting 1. And this is advertised through mailers sent to each of the residents who own property adjacent to the street. So even if your address isn't Brewer Drive, but you're on a corner, you'll get mailers. We're going to move into the design phase next. So we've done a site visit to confirm, the data that we see from space, and take feedback from the community and answer some of those questions that we've taken note of. After that is meeting 2. That's where we'll present the design that has incorporated the feedback we receive, and basically move on to the next steps, which is the online ballot and eventually construction. Sure. So this happens after meeting 2, but if it seems as if the residents are able to vote yes or no, and feel that it's a design that everyone is either comfortable with or like definitely not comfortable with. Essentially, everyone will get a postcard that has a code on it. You'll go to Nashville's website, enter your code, and then cast the vote. And then if 66% of people who do vote yes, then the project moves forward into construction.
So is this a process you've been all along?
No, this process has evolved since the program's inception. There were plenty of lessons learned along the way, and we're always open to making any changes that we need to keep it moving smoothly.
And the follow-up is, go back to that very beginning, the application, you just said residents. So does that mean individual residents, or you take the application associations of
Yeah, any individual can apply for traffic calming. This is the end slide where we have the opportunity to ask any final questions. Contact information is for Gil Thomas. He's the program manager. Again, I'm David Greaves with Kinley Horn. I'm also happy to answer any emails that come my way.
So, assume that you have find a little bit unique.
Mm-hmm.
So,
exactly. Yes. And usually we don't tend to put things like outside the road. So like we'll have signs to warn about the cushions or tables. We'll make sure those don't go, into the sidewalk. But oh, okay. Got it. Mm-hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
have any photos?
No, I don't. I mean, essentially it is, trying to think the easiest way to. So on NDOT's website, there are published designs of neighborhoods that are already going to construction. What I can do is send you a set of plans that essentially has the same bulb out design, and you'll be able to get a better picture of what will go in. But
So the purpose of that is to slow traffic.
there are a couple purposes, slowing the turning movements and also reducing crossing distances. So like if you have a wide road, it takes a longer time to get across. Yeah, exactly.
Because the turning issue is
Mhm.
we don't. Making those turns quickly, on or off. So happen.
Mhm. Yeah, we're going to coordinate closely with the sidewalk design, knowing that they have considered that particular intersection so closely. We'll likely just defer to whatever they're doing. Essentially, when we do these concepts, we just identify intersections that seem like good candidates based on the geometry. It's good feedback. Thank you.
Sidewalk design a couple of times. So is that a different department? Because like I said, my end of Brewer is very wide, but we don't have sidewalks on either side. Is that something that's in this, other than wide shoulders, not one for inside?
So it is the same department, the Nashville Department of Transportation.
Okay.
It is a different program. So that's the sidewalks program.
And someone has to put an application for that.
I don't exactly know how it works, but it is request based, and they have a similar method of evaluating where to install sidewalks.
There's a sidewalk plan prioritized for schools, for bus stops, so to make that sidewalk. Got Prairie and Tustin schools. I have not seen. All the money in the world and men's not a sidewalk.
It's actually, we do have a lot of people walking to the park.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Do it yourself.
And I'm thankful, that's why I do.
Yeah.
That's a nice deal.
Also, another question from the chat, average timeline for the process from now to completion.
Yeah, that's a great. Perhaps we'll need to figure out exactly what their schedule is before making decisions, but we're a little ways out from that point as well. So meeting one to meeting two, that sort of depends on basically just availability and our capacity to do this design. That's usually a month or two. And then the online ballot, we have a short 1 to 2 week period before that goes live. We leave it open for 3 weeks to give everyone a chance to vote. And then should it be approved, it gets all the materials are ordered. So I think nowadays that process is a little over 8 weeks. That has to do with difficulty getting material, and then there's quite a backlog of existing approved projects that NDOT's contractors are steadily working their way through.
Some context, Cattle Drive was approved 2 months ago. It's going to be fall because of the guy. And just taking Tustin Road side, time it took before the road got paved again.
Right,
It'll take a while,
right.
but at least while they construct the sidewalk and digging up the road.
Right.
So there's some traffic calming prior to the
Exactly.
finished, you know.
Construction for
It's a comment online saying the only way that they knew about this meeting was from the councilman's website last week.
Got it. That's great to know. So what we do is advertise these meetings with physical mail. Um, that's good to know. Yeah, yeah. We don't expend more resources than we need to get the word out. I mean,
I think you're getting out with that small of a
yeah. I
Can you ask if that person's a renter? Because I think you sent it to the property owner.
that's a very good point. Yeah. So
They rent.
They're a renter.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah, so we advertise to the owners of the properties wherever they may live.
But I'm saying that doesn't always happen either. And when you go to the construction, when you finish all this stuff, the contractors, are they under any obligation to let the homeowners of that construction is going to?
I don't believe so. It's just like any other road work that happens in the public right of way.
But it has been a time when we were notified.
Got it.
In previous years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think these take.
Yeah. That was
Mhm. Yeah, so these projects are not typically as disruptive as like a repaving project or a sidewalk project. They'll understood. Do we have any other questions online or otherwise before we wrap up?
And I did do a complaint, so that it's not writing that I.
Got it. Well, that's good feedback. I'm glad that you've done the process to document it. Well, we can go ahead and wrap up. This is a plug for NDOT's social media presence, and this QR code or URL will take you to the traffic calming website. They've got a lot of good information about the manual toolkit, as well as they'll publish this meeting and any further designs that come about as this project moves forward. Thank you. Stop
Thank you. I
recording.
appreciate you all coming and putting